you. I am very honored to introduce our facilitator today, Brother Ryan Blanck. Ryan is a 2002 graduate from Western Michigan who worked on SIGEP staff for 8 years as the Director of Health and Wellness and the Education and Performance Specialist. He is the founder and CEO of Deviate, a performance improvement consultancy specializing in leadership and team performance and transformation. Notable clients include the National Football League, Philadelphia Eagles, New York Jets, Detroit Lions, Cleveland Browns, Clemson University, and Western Michigan University, among many others. Y'all, please join me in welcoming Brother Ryan Blanck.
Hey, everybody. It's great to see you. So, okay, where did he go? Eric dude. All right. I saw, it's been a long time since I've seen chapter designations. And if I'm not mistaken, Georgia Delta, is that UGA?
Yes, sir.
Oh, shit, dude. You got a big game on Monday. It's Monday, right?
Yes, sir. We're excited.
Oh, wow. Are you going?
No. I think we've decided that Athens, with that, if everyone was going to Indianapolis, I think that would be the spot to be. But, probably more fun to be with the buddies.
Oh, wow. Well, good luck on that. And if there's anyone here I believe Roll Tide, is that Alabama? What is that? Alabama Beta? Is that what that is? Pat?
Alabama Beta.
Oh, do we have any Alabama Beta guys here?
I am.
Oh, you know what we need to do then is we should figure out a way for when we break into small groups that we put you guys together so you can hang out and spend some time together. Wouldn't that be great?
No dogs.
Hey, thank you for being here today. All of us have something going on. All of us, right? And you probably have had a lot and is saturated when it comes to all things of technology, video conferencing and things of that capacity. Me too. I remember on Thursday, March 12th, 2020, my wife Amanda was down in Detroit working with some of the Detroit Lions executives. The next day, the NFL shut down. And the following day, we had to figure out and pivot what to do as a business. We lost 85% in revenue that day alone, that day when the NFL shut down. So we had to kind of pivot and figuring it all out. I just want you to know I appreciate you being here. From the bottom of my heart and the gratitude, I've been in your spot. I was a chapter president. I was IFC president as a sophomore, then chapter president as a junior. And one of the hardest things to do is leading your peers. And I'm going to teach you a couple of things that I picked up along the way that'll be helpful for you. My request is if you're going to be here, lean into the moment. I've done this before, and even a year ago had kids thrown in a bunch of lippers for those who don't dip, big dips. That's up to you, but they actually weren't paying attention. They're playing video games. If you'd prefer to play a video game, go ahead and do that on your own time, or just go ahead and log off because you don't have to be here. I want to be with everyone who wants to be here. Pat's right. I worked on staff, and my home chapter closed. It's so fascinating how quickly that can happen. As an undergraduate, we maybe had 120 undergrads. We won Buchanan Cup after Buchanan Cup. And maybe 5 years after graduating, we went through a member review. And about 2.5 years ago, my chapter closed, if you can imagine that. Doesn't take long. And so what we're asking you to do is lean into what you have and the opportunity that you have in front of yourselves. I want you to do this. Today is going to be broken down into 3 major segments. The first hour is about leadership development. The second hour is about really processing and auditing, like, hey, what's been going on with the chapter? And that's having real dialogue. And the third hour is about planning. So there's going to be a lot of small group conversation for you to actually apply what we're talking about and for you to be very granular when it comes to how you want to accomplish what you want to be up to. Here's my thing in our line of work is this. You can have a choice. You can move 10 things 3 miles or 3 things 10 miles. 3 things 10 miles. 3 things 10 miles. When we have too much going on, people lose focus of what actually is there, what they need to be up to. So I'm going to ask you to do 3 things. I'm going to ask you to identify 3 words. First word. And I want you to write them down. And I'm going to ask you to type them in the chat field. Here's what I want you to do. First word. What one word best represents your life in the previous 12 months? What one word best, so write that down. What one word best represents your world, your life in the previous 12 months? That's the first word. Second word. What one word best represents your life for the next 12 months? So the first one was more reflective. Now the second word is proactive with some intentionality. What one word best represents your world in the next 12 months? I'm seeing controlled growth, fun, a lot of growth, optimistic, excitement, productive, telling, leadership. I love all of that. We're specifically going to unpack both. Now, the third one, here's the third word. What one word best represents your state of mind today? Right now, where are you at? Ready, focused, hustle, tired, calm. Yeah. We have a toddler. He's just over 2.5 years old, and sleep is a hot commodity around here. And by the way, we have 2 puppies, so they'll probably come barrel downstairs here in the basement. So we've got our words. Here's what I want to do. Hey, Pat, let's break them down into small groups. You're going to have 6 minutes. In your 6 minutes, in your small groups of random small groups, Pat's going to break you down. I want you to share your 3 words. Who are you? What are your 3 words? Why do you have them? You have 6 minutes, and we'll give you the countdown. So, Pat, when you're ready, throw them in the small groups, please. We had 3 words. First word was reflective. The second word was proactive and with some intentionality. And then that third was about this particular moment. You know, it's really interesting when I work with even executives, it doesn't matter the industry. Sometimes they struggle with actually getting to know and creating a relationship. One thing that I want you to write down is relationship before opportunity. People think about like our business, and we're doing all this work in the National Football League and working with all these different teams. All of that happened from a SIGEP connection. All of our big clients came from the SIGEP network. And not one of them did we try to get the opportunity before the relationship. And about, maybe 2.5 years ago, I had another past staff guy contact me. And the short story is, hey, look, my wife is looking to plan an offsite retreat with her boss. Come to find out her boss is the senior vice president of marketing, content, and creative for the Philadelphia Eagles. Went in there, worked with the Eagles, had a great time. The Eagles hired us for 3 more engagements that one off season. One of the senior vice presidents there convinced the NFL to hire me to keynote speak for the NFL National Convention, which I did. And that's what really put us on the map. But it was all through the SIGEP network. So relationship before opportunity and having real dialogue matters. You just identified 3 simple words. And if you took time to unpack what that is, think about as you're leading cabinets and having conversations with your people. One of the things that I always love to do is when I start meetings, I want to find out where's their mindset today. So that one word of like, where are you today? Because if someone's got a really bad mindset, maybe in that moment we pour into that human being, because that is a human being, someone that we love and brotherly love in front of us. And maybe Wynn's got something that I should pull Wynn aside and we should have a conversation so I can be a stand for him. I don't know unless I ask. There's a thing that we implement. It's called clearings. A clearing is a moment in a meeting in the front end. It's like, what's on your mind? Does anyone need to clear anything? We did that working with the leadership council of the college football team. And I asked him, I said, hey, does anyone need to clear? And one of the captains stood up, turned around. There's 20 of us in the room, and his stepmom had just died. She's his mom. She had just died the day before. No one knew that. Had we not asked that question for a clearing, we would not have known that. Now we're going to do a simple activity. Here's what I want you to do. And Pat, we're going to run with that poll here in about 30 seconds. Simple activity. I want you to do this. I want you to identify if you're right or left-handed. If you're right-handed or left-handed, just, okay, you've got that. Now, just stick with these particular rules. There's no tricks here. I'm righty. So with your dominant hand, I want you to snap your fingers 5 consecutive times. So not yet. So 5 consecutive times. And then using your pointer finger, I want you to draw an uppercase E on your forehead. Pretty simple. Here it goes again. Your dominant hand. You're going to snap 5 quickly, 5 consecutive times with your dominant hand and the pointer finger. You're going to draw an uppercase E as in Edward on your forehead. So get ready. Do your snaps. Snap 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pointer finger, draw your E. Okay, now here's the good news is I believe, at least the screen that I saw, bear in mind there are 10 pages on that I can't see everybody, but I saw everybody on this first page. You actually did that. Now there's 2 ways that you could have drawn your E, right? You could have drawn it so it looked like this. So the tails point to the left, right? And you could have drawn it another way. You could have drawn it this way. So the tails point to your right. Now, here's what I want you to do. Pat's going to run a poll. I want you to identify in the poll, which way did you go? Did you point it? Did your tails point to your left shoulder? Did your tails point to your right shoulder? Where are we? Let's take a look. Boy, it's like neck and neck, you know, great little poll. So we got lefts and rights. 87% of the folks are in. So here we're just going to run with these numbers here. It's about 60% went left and about 40% went to the right. Here's what this tells us. And the science behind this is quite fascinating. The science says this: if my tail's pointed to the left, I typically, my go-to response in working with people is to seek perspective. If my tail points to the right, my go-to response in this moment of my life is I'm going to be more me-centric in the moment. I'm going to understand my position before I'm engaging and seeking perspective from anyone else. Here's what's fascinating. In the leadership context, there are so many different ways to categorize leadership, all these different characteristics. There is absolutely one thing in leadership, one characteristic that is the most important, and it's empathy. Empathy is the most important characteristic in leadership today. What does that mean? It means perspective taking. If your E went to the left, that actually means that your audience can actually read the E. That means that right now you have a tendency to go and seek perspective first. If your E pointed to the right, now you have a mindset that I want you to transition to seek others' perspective first. Why does that matter? Inclusivity is so important. It's so hard to measure. Why is that important? It's important because on the super subconscious, even in psychologically, one of the most harmful things you will ever do to someone is exclude them. Think about it. One of the most harmful things you will ever do to someone is exclude them. So the power of inclusivity is beyond measure. When we're leading, we need to go and seek perspective. It's just perspective taking first before drawing a line in the sand, before having a stance. Yeah, I'm asking you to have a backbone. I'm also asking you to go and be proactive in your leadership and engage people. That's why relationship matters. So Jacob, down in Florida, when you're working with a chapter, Florida IOTA. Tell me, which chapter's Florida IOTA?
That's USF, University of South Florida.
What up? In Tampa, is that correct?
Yep.
Look at that, guys. So when you're working with the chapter, when you're leading, again, I want you to stand for your principles. And I also want you to go and seek, understand, and creating a level of inclusivity. That is important because of this. In my line of work, Pat mentioned I graduated in 2002. So imagine this. That's going to be 20 years. Oh my gosh. So for 20 years, I've been chasing one question. Seriously. And people ask me all the time, like, hey, what do you do? I'm like, I've been chasing one question. We're going to unpack that for the rest of the hour is this. Are you worth following? Because in our line of work, we have found leaders who are and who are not worth following. Think about that for a minute. So Christian, Texas Row, where's Texas Row?
Yep.
Where is that?
Baylor.
I was going to guess Baylor. I was your RD back in 2002, 2003. So yeah. Here's what's fascinating is as we're leading, you can be a leader, but you can be a shitty one. Do you want to be someone who's leading in a way that people win because of you or in spite of you? And do you want to be worth following? And, candidly, people think that they are worth following, and they certainly are not. I'm going to teach you the mindset that you can deploy for the rest of your life. I'm going to teach you a few of my tricks before we go into processing and auditing that we teach all of our executives. Doesn't matter the industry because it's all relevant. Pat, can you roll that video for us, please? The first video. I can't hear the audio. He's getting it. I promise you. It's a good video. It's quick. In a follow-up, we'll send it to you too. It's on YouTube.
Hey, this is Ryan Blanck with Deviate. Let me ask you a question. Are you worth following? Seriously, think about it. What does it even take to be a healthy leader who's actually worth following in the first place? I can tell you that leaders need to lead differently. There's been a seismic shift to the liberating, collaborative leader who has the positive energy needed to unlock dormant potential within their people and love them in a whole new way. At the end of the day, leadership comes down to two things: the power of choice and a line. This line is a universal guiding principle and the foundation to leadership. You're either one or two places. You're either above or you're below this line. Both locations are a choice. Both are a mindset. When you're above the line, your mindset's open, ready for growth, and hardwired for inclusivity. When you're below the line, your mindset's negative, closed, fixated on being right, and you think people are out to get you. Above the line represents things like wonder, love, curiosity, co-creation, personal responsibility, and forgiveness. Outcomes of an above the line mindset include collaboration, innovation, healthy, loving relationships, an attitude of gratitude and fun. Conversely, below the line represents blame, shame, judgment, fear, criticism, and sarcasm. The below the line mindset breeds a cycle of doubt, anxiety, a poor self-concept, and the general feeling of I'm not good enough. This mindset's fueled by negative people and energy, stress, frustration, and fatigue. Think about the toll this mindset can have on cultures, locker rooms, and your family. The great news is everyone has a choice about your location and the relationship to this line. Think about it in sports. Coaches will create two psychological outcomes for their players: fun versus fear. Athletes will have a higher likelihood to reach their full potential and consistently deliver if they play in the present moment, embodying a fun-filled mindset. Being above the line creates flow where they trust that they'll win and perform. Meaning, a fear-filled mindset forces the athlete to always play from a deficit, play out of caution, and thinks below the line to not make a mistake and screw up. Fear-filled athletes are trying to win and force themselves out of the present moment. They're either dwelling on the past or drifting into the future. Almost all mistakes in sports, leadership, and in life take place when we're outside of the present moment. Hence the immense importance of leading and coaching through an above-the-line mindset. Another guiding principle we teach is I am creates. Anything that you say after I am will create your future. Above the line creates a brighter future of possibility and outcomes. Below the line will create a future of doubt, mistake, and a poor self-concept. Think about this. What happens to the golfer who stands over the ball and thinks to himself, don't screw up, don't screw up, don't screw up. Don't pull the ball left, you idiot. The water is to the left. When he hits the ball, where does the ball always go? To the left. The same lessons apply to you and your leadership. I wonder what I am creates narratives you're telling yourself. I also wonder, what are your people saying to themselves? The single most important attribute to be a healthy leader who's worth following is your location, mindset, and relationship to this line. Where you are will either tune in or tune out your audience. Are you worth following? Well, you are if you're above the line.
All right, welcome back. So the good news is you just watched a quick video. The better news is that you can actually, we'll send that in a follow-up. So we just saw something. Hey, Cade, I saw Cade is from Washington Alpha. Cade, that Washington Alpha, that is Washington State University. Is that not?
Yes, sir.
Cade, where did my wife go to college?
Was she a Cougar?
She is a Cougar, man. In more ways than one, bro. So yes, hey, stay off mute, bro. Stay off mute. Oh, yep. You're about to kickstart this whole segment.
Good.
Do you like Cougar gold cheese?
I've actually never had it. It's like $40 for a can.
You've never had Cougar gold cheese?
Okay.
All right. Well, we need to fix that. I have yet to go to Poland, but I have friends there, so we're going to get you some cheese in some way, shape, or form. Hey, Kate, stay off mute real fast. You just watched the video. It's about 3.5 minutes long. It talks about a line being above and below the line. Let's take a trip being above the line. Things that you saw in that video or that you've experienced in life that represent life and leadership being above the line. Give me a couple examples.
I think the I am thing that was right on the line, but I think that's super important because when you're framing your mindset, when you're, creating goals or talking to people, I think framing your mindset in that kind of way is really helpful and important because it's positive.
Yeah, it's what's fascinating about that is the whole manifestation of things, right? If you think you can, you think you can't, you're right. Was it? I think Henry Ford mentioned that. So a couple of things that represent life and leadership above here. What? Give me a couple examples.
Just from the video.
Sure.
Let's see what.
Are you hitting up a lifeline right there?
I got my buddy. I got a fellow Cougar over here.
Dude, what up, fellow Cougar? So would you say that one of them might be fun, for example?
Sure. Yeah.
Fun. Give me another word.
Persistence.
Gosh, man, you're dropping like big, long. Who could spell persistence? My
Cougs can apparently.
Persistence. Great. All right. I'm going to go to, let's see here. Ethan from Connecticut. Ethan, I was just in stores, bro. Ethan, I was just there. Met your new ball coach. You're going to have a good time with Coach Mora. So Ethan, a couple of words that represent life and leadership above the line. Give me a couple.
Something that stuck out to me was trust.
Trust. Okay. Give me a couple more.
Trust. Open-mindedness, or like transparency.
Yeah, sure. Open-mindedness, and you said transparency. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm gonna go to Clay North. Clay North, Moeda. What up, Clay? Clay Dog. Couple of words that is life and leadership above the line. Let's go.
Oh gosh. Shoot, this is hard. You put me on the spot.
I'm going to put all of you on the spot. So everyone be prepared for me to ask that question. I'm also going to ask you about life and leadership below the line. So we have here, how about being kind?
Yeah.
All right.
I was going to say.
Yeah. What else? Give me another example. What's the next one you're going to say?
Enjoyment, maybe.
Enjoyment. So it could even almost be like flow. Enjoyment, yeah. Right? We also know the inclusivity. We talked a little about inclusivity a few moments ago. Great. Austin, you're in California. Austin Fitzpatrick. Austin, come on, give it to me. Let's go.
To go off inclusivity, could we put like diversity or something?
Sure. Okay. Diversity. Hey, by the way, remember we talked about this? Empathy. By the way, if you want to see me, select me in speaker so you can see me and have a better chance of seeing this. Peyton, you got one. Let's go. Peyton, you just said in the chat that you have one. Hang on here, Peyton. Peyton Newman, are you still there? We're going to go to somebody else then. Okay. Wayne Alley. Wayne Alley, you're up in New York. Wayne, give me a couple more. Let's go.
Love was on there, I believe.
Yeah, it was, dude. Give me another one.
How
about gratitude?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, all of you, I just want you to, let's stop for a hot second, right? Yeah, we're listing things in the video. I want you to think about who's been your favorite teacher of all time or your favorite teammate of all time or someone that you admire, a leader that you've actually had the opportunity of connecting and working with. What made them so special? And that's what we're listing here. So Wayne, give me a couple more examples.
Well, from my history teacher, he was down to earth.
Yeah. Okay.
Like he was real. Like he gave it to you straight.
Down to earth. I love that. Right. And then great. Let me see here. Jake Young's air. Let's see here. Is that Arkansas Zeta, which would make you Central Arkansas? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you know who Dr. Gary Bunn is?
We do.
I love me some Gary Thomas. By the way, he used to be a radio DJ. Did you know that?
Yes.
Really? You did know that? Yeah, his call name was Gary Thomas. So Jake, give me a couple of more words to put up here. Let's go.
Confidence.
Confidence. Okay. What else?
Patience.
Patience. Patience. I'm going to put up here, you know what I'm going to do too? I'm going to put up here accountability. Accountability. You know what's interesting is let's just talk about accountability for a hot second. People think that accountability tends to be below the line, and it's not. It would be your delivery of accountability that could dictate if it's above or below the line. I don't subscribe to anything when it comes to the whole state of tough love. Tough love is not real. If you embody love, which is up here, right there, you don't need tough love. Tough love is someone's excuse to be an asshole. That's not leadership, right? If you have to be that way to cut someone down. So there was in the chat, I saw a couple more. So in the chat, if you have some, put them there. I saw inspiration. You know what's also here is personal responsibility. That's right. Responsibility. So people who authentically live in this state, they make it really easy to follow. I've got honesty, loving, positivity. Sure, let's put it up here. I'll put positivity, put positive right there. So we have a good, respectful. Sure, I love that contribution there. Respectful. Great. Now let's take out the red marker. The red marker is going to take us below the line. So let's do this. In the chat field, everybody, if you saw something, what represents life being below the line? Doubt. Good. Just keep them going. Let me see what you got. We got, holy shit, fear. Yeah. I saw judgment, sarcasm, pessimism. Sure. Chaos. I saw chaos. How do you chaotic? Being oof, boy, that's awful. Pessimistic. Oof. You know, I went to Western Michigan University, and I didn't major in spelling. Blame. Do we have blame? No, we don't have blame. The yelling / telling is also below the line. If you have to actually scream at somebody, that's actually speaks more to your insecurities of what's going on within you. Fear is up there. Great. Oh, demeaning. Sure. Demeaning. Great. Man, I should have done this the first time. So ignorance. Okay. Hey, by the way, who just said ignorance? So Jackson, tell me a little bit about ignorance from your perspective. What does that mean?
Yeah. So to me, ignorance would mainly be, I would say in the case of a leader, looking at those that, that you are leading, like if you're essentially writing off any efforts that they put in as them just being, not a good person, or them doing the bare minimum, not doing their share of the work, rather than looking from their point of view.
Okay, cool. Appreciate you sharing. I saw greed up there, being stubborn. Yeah. Here's what's really interesting. My wife is writing a book, and her book really breaks down. There are 4 fears. Every fear can be broken down into one of these 4 categories. And then, so she's breaking this down, and then she studies judgment. So what makes a good decision, or what in the ethos culturally needs to be around in leadership in order to make better decisions, more sound decisions, right? Being of sound mind. So there are 4 factors that when they are present, people historically make bad choices. It's where poor judgment lives. And I'm going to circle them in purple. It would be fear, judgment. Stress and fatigue. So in the state of judgment, fear, stress, and fatigue, especially when there's a high level of stress, high level of fatigue, high level of fear, you're in that state where it's likely that your people are going to be making some bad decisions. You know what's really fascinating? When you look at organizational success, we're going to unpack the primary reason why organizations fail. And it's because of internal operator error. It's completely fascinating. So we've got a general idea. This is stress, frustration. I got to put frustration up here. Frustration is another one. Frustration. Can't remember if that's already up here. Frustration. By the way, I'll take a photo and send this out to Pat so you can at least have that. Right. So now we have an understanding of our state of mind. These are mindsets. You choose this mindset. Yeah, there are things that you can do to help you authentically get in there. A lot of that, that can be a choice. And exercise. Did you know that for every 50 minutes of rigorous exercise, you reduce the likelihood of feeling down by about 50%? So think about it. 1 workout, 50%, 2 is a quarter, 3 is 12.5, and then 4 workouts in a week is about 6.125% or whatever the case may be. Isn't this fascinating? This is your mindset. Those who are worth following authentically live up here. You know what's really interesting is it is not. I want to say this before we transition. I want to say the only time anyone is ever truly frustrated, disappointed, or upset is when their expectations have not been met. That's it. Think about it. The only time we are ever frustrated, disappointed, or upset is when our expectations have not. So there's two questions we always ask. One, did you truly clarify what these expectations were of an audience, of a person, of a partner, whatever, right? And then, like, how do you know? And then two is when it comes to overall expectations, especially if it's about self, were those expectations even realistic to begin with? Were they even realistic? And I'm finding that answer is probably not. So when it comes to this board here, it is not realistic to always think that you will live life above the line. I don't. This is a peace state. We have puppies. I told you, we have a toddler. I can feel triggered. This is a triggered state of mind. Mastery is when you get below the line, you have the relationships, the self-efficacy, and some skills to get back above it as quickly as possible. You are not to always live it here because that's not realistic. I'm not there. Sometimes if this is call it 0, and then this is like a plus 10, and this is again 0, and down here is negative 10. I've been, I don't know, like a negative 4,000 before, right? I've gone in some deep spaces, and I have someone to lean on. It's my wife or other people, right? Now, here's what's really interesting. If you go to your reactions, and if this is true for you, give me a thumbs up. Let me explain first. Have any of you ever been around somebody that you haven't even had a conversation with this person, but there was something about this person that you just physically being around them in their space, I don't know, that you were drawn to them? Has anyone ever experienced that before with a thumbs up? I didn't have a conversation, but for some reason, I feel connected to this human being. They're radiating something that you're picking up. That is intuition. You do pick up on that. And then how about this? Second thing. Have any of you ever been around someone in their physical space? Have you ever been around someone and thought to yourself that you didn't need to have a conversation to know that you didn't want to have a conversation with this person? You're like, get me the hell away. Has anybody ever experienced that before? Brandon, you're shaking your head. Yes. You're like, yeah, I've been there. Yes. Yeah. Right. And what's interesting is that is what we call as the vibe test. The vibe test. And you know what? They're super fascinating. The Heart Math Institute, this is my phone, but the Heart Math Institute has a device that can measure what the hell you're radiating. It measures your vibration. Is it positive? Is it above the line? Are people drawn to you? Or are they feeling repelled? Pat, go ahead and show us that next video if you could, please.
When I was in school, I was taught that the brain is the master organ in the body. But what the new science is showing us is that the brain receives the instructions telling it what to do from our heart, the human heart. And this is a relatively new way for science to think about us and our relationship to our bodies. What we now know is that the quality of emotions that we create within our heart determine the signal that we send to the brain to release the chemistry into our bodies. Every moment of every day, there's a conversation that is happening between our heart and our brain. It's the inner environment, thoughts, feelings, emotions, and beliefs we know can be either healing or toxic.
That was a small clip from a documentary called Heal. Here's what's interesting. As I mentioned before, they have devices that can measure that whole vibe test. What you think and how you experience your life on the inside matters. The healthiest leaders who are actually worth following are those who have an authentic and a healthy relationship with themselves. The self-work matters. That's the hardest stuff you can do, by the way. And so my request to all of you, Jack, you're there at Mo Alpha, which is Missouri. You're there, you're doing your thing, right? You need to hone in on yourself. That matters because how you're experienced will dictate where people experience you on that line. Are you someone that they're willing to work with? Or are you someone that they're winning in spite of? Now, some could say, well, win is a win. That's not the same for me. I don't have that. So now here's what we've got going on here. I'm going to teach you the 738-55 rule. And, it's pretty common. It's been out there. So in the I think it was the late 70s. Is there anyone here from UCLA? I think that would be California. I can't remember that designation. It's been too long for me. Your researchers at UCLA said, hey, look, we're going to go and we're going to start thinking about the preferences when it comes to communication. So they looked at communication has three major elements. So let's see here. Let me tell you what they are. The three major elements of communication. You have obviously a body language, body language, right? You have your content, and then you have your tone of voice, right? These are the three main elements: your body language, your content, and your tone. So the researchers went around and they asked people about just their preferences. Of the three, which one do you prefer the most? Of the three. Here's what they found. Let me see here. Colin at Iowa Delta. Hi, Colin.
What's up?
Dude, okay. So these numbers are represented here. So it's 738-55. This is body language, content, and tone. Which one do you think was 55% of the vote?
I would go with tone.
You would go with tone?
How you talk to people.
Okay, tone. Okay, and 38, what do you think would be 38?
I'm going to go for body language here.
So then content would be 7.
Yeah.
So you're very close. So content is 7%, meaning from a preferential standpoint, you have so much more grace in your language, in your words. Your words matter, and that's fine tuning. And here's what's fascinating. 7%. Tone is 38%, and then body language is 55%. So it's how you're being experienced. I'm going to break down communication in a moment. So as you are leading, I want you to know what you radiate and how people experience you will dictate the message that they're receiving. We have learned in our work that there's this thing called the negativity bias. In the negativity bias, there's a negative narrative. In the negative narrative, people will go to that negative place. I'm bad, I'm wrong. It comes from our own insecurities, and we can pick up and read on people. So for you, you have to hold that space. So if you look at this right here, the gap right here between 7 and 38, that's a 5x. That's a 5x gap. That's huge. So where we spend a lot of our time is on tone. You know where you don't get tone is in email, by the way. You do not get tone in email. Tyler, you don't get tone in email, bro. So when you're in Connecticut, you got the husky thing over your shoulder. I see it. You send me an email, you're giving me most of the authority to I can insert the tone that I experience from my own heart in the email, right? And here's what's fascinating is there are people, let me ask you, does this sound about right for you? So give me a moment now and give me a thumbs up. Would you consider yourself a bold, blunt, straightforward communicator that speaks from the heart and is just very upfront? Does anyone experience that? Is anyone? Give me a thumbs up, and let me see how many thumbs up we have. Okay, there are a few natural tone types. Typically, what happens is the tone type that I described is more of the assertive tone. You're more straightforward, right? The most misunderstood tone is the assertive tone. So if you did a thumbs up there, it's kind of like that E. It just shows that, hey, you know what? You might need to put a little bit of sizzle, and you need to hone in on how you're being experienced when you communicate. So I work with, obviously, the Jets. I have a call with the Jets after. It's why I'm wearing a shirt, right? So out of full transparency, I was supposed to be in Buffalo. We're dating the Bills right now, and they play the Jets. So I canceled it to be here and not have to worry about it, right? So I'm going to have my sessions over phone and video this afternoon when they're in the hotel. And their team president's a great guy, and he has a natural assertive tone, and he is often misunderstood. And now when you teach that, he's able to be like, oh, okay, so how he positions, how he communicates matters. So let's talk a little bit about this. Now we have this. Now you have a general understanding. I want you to hone in on this, and you really need to soften that up. When you seek perspective and you have empathy, I want you to have a warm heart when you're connecting with people. right? Because you'll shut them down and you don't even know that happens. When we talk about communication, here's what's really fascinating. There are 3 rules of 80 that's important for all of you to know. The first rule of 80 is this: small businesses 80% of small businesses don't make it 10 years. 80%. Now let's look at the research. Now, why is that? Well, the primary thing is this, is there typically is conflict at the top. If there's more than one founder, there's conflict, and that's like ego and a lack of effective communication at the top. That is operator error. It's operator error. So then all of a sudden, if we start looking at organizational success, like, hey, okay, look, if we just took a large swath of organizations, and specifically organizations, and individual units within the organizations, we studied them. By the way, that could be your chapter, could be your position, could be your cabinet. And they said, okay, of organizations that fell short of a stretch and yet realistic standard, what is the common denominator? What is the common denominator? Why in the world did that happen? 80% is contributed by poor communication behavior. Are you shitting me? Like, that's operator error. As a leader, you are in the communication business. And the third one we kind of already talked about is 80% of communication is lost in email. Email is great to like maybe schedule a conversation, not to have one. From this moment on, you need to assume that every single email that you send will be read by a negative tone. Every single one. So email is great to follow up. So if Tim from Wisconsin, if Tim shoots me a note and we have a conversation, and then he follows that up with a recap of what he heard, what his commitments are, that's great. That's how we use email. So we now know that communication is a big deal. Let me teach you a couple of things about communication, and we'll prepare for our next segment. I call this is this. Clear is not effective communication. Now, what do I mean by that? Effective communication. Clear communication. People tell me all the time, I'm a clear communicator. I'm like, what are you, rap it and saran wrap? I'm totally confused. What? You're a clear communicator? What the hell is that shit? I don't understand what you're talking about. Clear communication, or when my mom, as a kid, my mom, have I made myself clear? I could actually say yes, because clear communication means this. It means that I can hear words that you are saying, and I can hear that you're saying, I can hear you, and you are articulating words. There is nothing about meaning in that. I do not want you to be a clear communicator. I want you to be effective in your communication. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means this. In communication, I own one thing and you own one thing. So let me say this. This is, by the way, this is the most important thing I will share today. So if the feed dies after this lesson and you only learn this and you use this from this moment on, you will set yourself up. I mean, you'll be far more successful than I am at the age of 41. I promise you that. You have this. In communication, there's me and there's you. That's it, right? And so many people think that communication is super simple. I have something to say. I say it, you listen, and we're done. Or you have something to say, you say it, I listen, and we're done. And it does not work like that. So in communication, I own one thing and you only own one thing. Now, I have a message. Right? So here's how it goes. This is what I own. I own my intention. Wayne, I own my intention. That's the only thing I own is my intention. Okay, so I own that. And so, Wayne, what do you own? This is what you own. Wayne, you own your interpretation. Right? I'm delivering a message. And now Wayne is interpreting the message. It's coming to him and he's like, okay, got it. And we think that we're done. And that's totally not true. Let's go back to me. With intention, and all of you, when you're sharing something, intention comes from 2 places. And this goes to most important. Is your heart. How do you want to be experienced? Where are you? What's the vibration? Are you above or are you below the line? You saw that second video. I don't know about you, but I feel like that doctor guy looks like Bon Jovi to me. So Bon Jovi taught us about like The heart is all these things and all that stuff, right? And Pat, if you could send that link after when we're done too. So the heart. So, okay, how do I want to be experienced? Which goes back to the 738-55 rule, which is right here, right? How do I want to be experienced? Because the content is the next. This is the head. This is the logic, head, right? That's the content, right? So that's what my intention is right here. Now you own interpretation. Now we think that I own this, I deliver this, and you get it, and we have it. This right here is the shittiest question in the history of the leadership lexicon of all times. I'll write it down. This is the worst question leaders have ever asked, and it creates a false hope, a false pretense of understanding that we're on the same page. Here it comes. Kyle Brown, you ready for this? KB, you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, here we go. This is. Do you want to guess what the shittiest question is?
You kind of lagged. Did you ask a question there?
Oh, do you want to guess what the shittiest question of all time is?
I don't know. I'd probably say, are you like following me? Because people are always going to say yes. Like, do you get what I'm saying? People aren't going to stop you, especially if you're an assertive person.
So KB, all right, hang on here. We got KB. Cam comes in, even Dave. Yes. And here's the thing is this is the worst question in the history of mankind. This question reads, do you know what I mean? So yes. Anyone that says, am I clear? Does that make sense? You got it. And then KB, whatever. If it's a yes, no, if it's close-ended, that is one of the worst questions you could possibly ask. Think about it. Evan, if you and I are bullshitting, right? We're hanging out, right? And I ask the question, do you know what I mean? Right? That's a close-ended question for you, Evan. So all of a sudden I'm like, hey, bro, do you know what I mean? And Evan's like, yeah, right? I know what you mean. But the truth is, Evan, how in the world could you actually know what I mean?
It's a great question. It's up to your interpretation of like, if I see from your side of the story, try to understand what you're saying. And if I can't, then I just be like, yeah, I agree. And then just move on with the conversation. So you don't have to carry on the conversation if you don't want to.
Let me ask everybody this. Back to the whole reaction segment. Thumbs up if this has ever been true for you. Have any of you ever been in a conversation with anybody? And in that conversation with someone has said, hey, do you know what I mean? And deep down, the answer was no, and you responded with yes. So you lied, right? I have. I'm seeing a few thumbs up, right? I have. Hey, Blanck, do you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, yeah. No. I've had clients at the highest level in higher education. They'll leave a meeting with the chancellor, and the senior staff, excluding the chancellor, will have a second meeting to find out what the hell did the chancellor just say. They have no idea what's going on. So here's what's fascinating. So there's a couple of responses. Do you know what I mean? The answer is yes, and I do know by chance. The answer is yes, and I don't, but I don't want to feel dumb and stupid, right? That's for me. I don't, right? So I'm going to say that, right? I'm going to move on. Or I could say no. Here's a better question that I want you to ask, right? And again, how you ask this question will dictate how we experience you. Here's a better question. Let me grab a different marker. And this is what matters here is this. I want you to ask this question. And there are many iterations of this. This question is, what are you hearing? Or I could say, hey, Jake, what are you hearing? Or what did you hear? It doesn't matter what I say. It only matters what you hear. When we look at communication, if an audience member actually can actually hear and understand 40% of what you say, you're pretty decent in your communication. 40%? Are you kidding me? So imagine last July, I'm in New Jersey and I was with the Jets and I was teaching this to Joe Douglas, the general manager, and his staff. And it was funny is Joe came clean and he's such a great guy. And he's like, you know what, when you were sharing about being an effective communicator and about 40% of people when it comes to, actually hearing what's being said, I told another story I don't have time to share today. He goes, when you were telling me that story, I found myself daydreaming about what did he mean by this? And what is what is this particular company? I couldn't figure it out. So he had missed so much of the actual story because he was out of the present moment. So when we ask questions, hey, what are you hearing? So Cade, when you're working with your people at Washington State, right? It doesn't matter what you say, it only matters what people hear. And how do we know what we hear if we don't ask them? We have to just simply ask the question. And I want you to radiate, all of you, from that space of being grounded and being above the line. So what are you hearing? And from a loving tone and a loving space, and have them teach you. The more that they speak, the more that you are going to learn. And the more that you learn, the more you can understand if you've been effective. I have found in my time working with chapters that this right here is the holy grail that dictates success. And failure is about communication. Do we have the marching orders? Do we have clarity of what's going on and why? So what are you hearing? Now, there is a question real quick. Doug here from Washington State, what about how are you feeling? You can certainly ask that question. I love asking that question because how people are feeling can dictate where are they and how they might disseminate things or how they might process what's sharing. Let me teach you a little something here about how communication, this is the biology of communication is this. So let's say, for example, that Cole down in Detroit, because he's at Lawrence Tech. So Cole, what up, dude? So Cole down in Detroit, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm in Traverse City, bro, and it's chilly up here. If I'm being honest with you, it's pretty chilly.
It's a bit chilly down here too. I'm not liking it.
So here's what's fascinating. So if Cole and I are bullshitting back and forth, right, and we're having an effective conversation, this is how communication actually works. And it goes back to the question that we had just addressed is this. If Cole sends me a message, we think that Cole sends a message and somehow it comes through my computer and in these sound waves, it like floats magically and it goes in my ear and I like process everything and it feels great. And I'm like, I got you, Cole. Yeah, we're good, right? That is not how it works at all. And even if I have headphones on, let's assume that I have headphones on, it doesn't even work like that. Here's what actually happens. So Tyler, this is what happens, bro. When Tyler sends me communication, when any of you send communication, this is the science. My simplistic version of this is Tyler sends me a message. The message comes to me. All of a sudden, these sound waves come my way. How I experience them. So content, tone, and body language coming my way. All of a sudden, they go towards my ear. Then all of a sudden, they leave my ear and they go back here. Now, why do they go over here? Because you know what everyone has on? It's called a shit backpack. Everyone has one on. Everyone is going through something at all times of their life. And that something can help dictate how they experience you or how in the state of just frustration or insecurity, how are they now processing and how are they interpreting what you're sharing? So if Tyler sends me something, again, remember back in the day when you were in elementary school and you had these heavy backpacks and the bottom of the backpack was the heaviest because all your books and all that stuff would kind of sag down and you might walk a little bit like this, right? Because it's so heavy. Hang on. Here's my backpack. Here's my bag right here. This is my bag. So if I have this thing on, all the filtration starts right here. And then it works up. It works up the bag, up my spine. And all of a sudden, I have added extra message and meaning to things that didn't even exist because my own shit backpack. And we have to ask the question about what are you hearing to get in front of making sure that people are actually hearing what's being shared. That right there is essential. I have been in conversations where I have heard words people have never said. I've been in conversations where people have heard words that I've never said. And I bet the same goes true for you. And the only way to get in front of that is asking that simple question of what did you hear? Now, I'm going to share two more things and we're going to take a 10-minute break. One of the things that we talked about is about inclusivity. And with inclusivity is so important. Remember, psychologically, one of the worst things you ever do to someone is exclude them. So you have to design for inclusivity in every facet of your leadership. How we work together. How are we actually proactively engaging the chapter. How are we leading with empathy and seeking? It's just perspective taking, right? Again, I'm not asking you to feel sorry for. I'm asking you to actually just seek perspective, allowing people to contribute. That's what this is about. Okay, well, the same thing goes for our language. These are some words that I have here that I've written down. And as a matter of fact, I did a project recently for the Vikings. And this is the exact flip chart that we came up with the Viking staff from just after Thanksgiving. I will take a photo of this and I will send it to Pat. And Pat, you can send this out as a follow-up. These are words that create a higher level of inclusivity and belonging when I use them in my language. These ones right here can create a divide. So for example, us, our, we, together, can, include, share, contribute. Let me tell you this. I'm going to tell you this next word I'm going to share is we are finding this next word I'm going to share is the F word that is destroying leadership and culture more than any other word in our work. The F word. And the F word, this word does not rhyme with duck. It does not. Because you have to think about it. People have meaning and they get triggered by some language, right? So up here, these are more open and these create more level of inclusivity, like an observation or a thought. You're welcome. You're down here that says no doubt, no worries, and no problem. This is no. So the F word is, does anyone have a suggestion? So who has a guess in the chat field? What do you think is the most crippling culturally leadership? Colin, you get a freaking gold star. It is feedback. You're right. Feedback. Feedback. Yeah, well, Eric, yes, you definitely saw it on the big board. Yes, feedback. Feedback is the F word. Here's this. So let me say this. Ryan Kirky from Massachusetts Alpha, my man. Mass Alpha.
How's it going?
Where are you? Where are you?
UMass.
You're in Amherst. Oh, look at that. Hey, bro, can I give you some feedback real fast?
Sure, but I don't like that word.
Right. So how did you feel? Honestly, I mean, when I asked that question, How did you feel on the inside when you heard it?
I kind of felt like I was doing something wrong.
Yeah.
I needed to do something else. It was my fault.
And I didn't share what was behind that at all. And who knows what I was going to say after that. That word I'm finding in our work has created, it insinuates that you failed in there in the comment. That's right. You know, what's interesting is the language that we choose to use. That's why up here it's called words create worlds. I put Ryan on the defensive, right? The insecurity comes in like, oh, I'm bad, I'm wrong. How did I screw up, right? How would I know of any of that, right? And the answer is he hasn't. Okay. When we think about when we go into communication, when someone or both parties is below the line, specifically in this instance, so it's me and Ryan, if I say a trigger word like feedback, and these other words tend to be trigger words for many people, not everybody. Some people, they're not bothered by the word feedback, and most are. They are. If I say that to Ryan and I place Ryan below the line, I've just lost him in the present moment. When we are below the line, neurologically, we're not fully capable of being in the present moment in how we communicate. He is now, I've placed him in a state of deficit. I didn't place him in a growth environment. I placed him in a deficit environment. I did that. Ryan, I'm sorry. I did that to you. Now, so here's a question. The question would be like, Ryan, can I give you some feedback, right? And it's interesting of how people respond to that. Now, what's a different question you could ask? So the different question that you could ask, I could say something like, let's see this word here, share. Hey, Ryan, so give is forceful. That's the first word, and feedback is the second word on that question. So a different question you could, I'm asking you to try this stuff on, would be, hey, Ryan, could I share a thought? Hey, Ryan, can I share a thought? He's like, oh, shit, Blanck's got something for me. What up? I want that. I've created a growth moment right now. I've got him. Or, by the way, I could be saying the exact same thing. It's the setup that can be in a triggering or a growth, right? Or I could say, hey, could I share an observation? Could I share a request? Could I share an insight? Could I share an idea? If I was like, hey, Ryan, can I share an idea? In his chair, in my state of being, I want to create a moment where he's leaning into his chair and he's leaning into the conversation. He's like, oh, here we go. And when you work with your chapter members, these small things matter. And if you can ingrain this in your leadership now, are you kidding me? Like where you're going to be when you're 35, 45, and this is an authentic fabric of how you lead, how you're being experienced by that one simple thing. And now this right here is words create worlds. So right here is, something that I hear often is people will intertrain, will use as a synonym, drive, manage, and lead. We drive golf balls, we drive cars, we manage our time, we manage our finances, we lead people. I was reviewing an executive's resume the other day, and he had the word drive and drove often. And you could think about it. If I drove something, that can come across as being forceful. Like I made Ryan, I made Tyler, I made Kate do this. I drove them to do this. Like I'm riding them hard. I didn't inspire them then, right? That's how people can think. Now, when I work with Tim, I want Tim to be led. I want to lead Tim. It's about relationship before opportunity. And over here, something I would want you to try on is about these negative transitions, but, yet, though, and however. I use them so rarely when I speak and when I write. Your language will come across more powerfully if you eliminate or really reduce the word but. How do you do that? Well, you can just eliminate the word and have the comma. Tyler's a great guy, but he lives in Connecticut. Tyler's a great guy, comma, he lives in Connecticut. Or I could replace it with an and. Tyler's a great guy and he lives in Connecticut. Did you experience a difference when a change of a word? Here's something else that I would want you to really try on. And we're about to take a break. So Pat, we're going to take a 10-minute break after this moment here. Okay. Would be this. I'm from Michigan. I was born in Flint. I went to Western Michigan. My hometown is right by Flint. I would say just about every single person in my community, family had somebody in their immediate family, if not both of the parents or grandparents, worked for General Motors. And, it was probably shortly when we hit the recession, I don't know, it was 2009, 2010. I was reading an article in Forbes. Mary Barra was the CEO of GM. She was just announced and named the CEO. And in the article, I couldn't help but read this thing. And it was like kind of a Q&A, really fascinating. And what caught me by surprise is the amount of times that she, and we all have done this, have used the phrase, I think. When you use the phrase, I think, it actually undercuts your credibility and what's going on. So Colin, if Colin's like, hey, I think this, well, no shit, you think it because you're saying it. We don't need to say that. So here's an example. She said something to the effect of, I think Brandon is going to make an excellent executive vice president for Cadillac. And I think Cadillac is the brand that's going to put us on the map. You could say, read that and say, hey, that's a good statement, right? Okay. Now, however, listen to this. Brandon is an excellent executive vice president to lead Cadillac, and Cadillac is the next brand to put us on the map. I just eliminated the I think. I hope you experienced a little bit of a difference of how things came across. Hey, is Jackson a good leader? I think he's a good leader. Hey, is Jackson a good leader? Jackson's a good leader. Be definitive in your language, because you create an error of doubt and confusion when we have non-committal language. So I'd want you to try that on.